In the previous episode, I urged you to do well the vital task of training your children to love well. When you train them to love well, you are effectively training them in the art of living well. From 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, I presented two important suggestions about how we can learn to love well. Let me remind you of what John says. He wrote, "Everyone who loves a father loves his child as well. And this is how we know we love the children of God, by loving God and carrying out his commands." And of course, one of the central commands is to love others. Now, I suggested last time that when we train children to love well, and that this is such an important part of building relationships, we must teach them, as John does, that loving others is an expression of how we love God, and it shows how well we love God. And secondly, we must teach and show our children that to love others well is a service to God that is both hard and easy. It can be hard because we have to stop our selfishness getting in the way and not react to the selfishness of those we are trying to love. But it is also made so much easier by the fact, as John is teaching us, that loving others is not because they are lovable or because they show love to us, but because we love God who loves us, and we're doing it in obedience to him for his sake and his pleasure. And God more than compensates for our own need to be loved. Now, in this episode, I just want to add one more thing when we're teaching children about loving others in a Christian way. The third and final thing I'd just like to say about this is that we do need to train our children to love others, but in a way that is not naive, or that makes them think that loving others is just being nice to everyone all the time. We don't want them to be naive. Christian love is not the love of an unrealistic idealist who just thinks the best about everyone and is blind to the faults and dangers of other people. We can't just be nice and sweet to nasty people or enable them to manipulate others who are vulnerable or to abuse or bully us. Christian love is done with our eyes wide open, and we want to train our children to realize that when they love others, they will be exposed to risk and to danger. And therefore, they need to approach every relationship carefully and with caution, and to be wise and well informed. We need to approach people, especially strangers, with wise discernment and good judgment. Christian teaching is very clear about human nature and how it can be cunning and deceptive and even practicing evil for selfish reasons. It teaches us that people will deliberately sin against God who loves them, and will hurt and do sin against people who are showing love to them. And knowing this means that we have to love others and being well informed by what the Bible teaches us about human relationships, and to be careful, to be discerning. We love because God loves us, but we do not expose our children or ourselves to people who will deliberately hurt and harm us. We have to, in a sense, teach our children that loving others means that we are not naive and we're just not nice to everybody all the time, because we realize that that would lead to great hurt both to ourselves, and it means that we can be enabling other people to be hateful or unkind or bullies. We need to teach our children how to love with compassion on the one hand, but also to be aware that not everyone will return that with compassion and kindness. We need them to become aware of the danger of dealing with people, particularly strangers who they don't know, how there can be times when they will be unsafe if they just naively trust them. And so it's very important that we teach our children, yes, to love others, but to do so in a way that is appropriate to what we know about those other people. And also that loving others can mean that sometimes they have to speak up and speak against what they see that person saying or doing, particularly if what they're saying or doing is harmful or hurtful to themselves or to other people. We want our children to have a voice. We want our children to be wise and understanding about the reality of human nature. And it could mean also that loving others will require that sometimes they have to learn to protest against what others are saying or doing by refusing to participate in their words or in their actions and refusing to join them. Christian love is not about being naive. It's not about just being nice to people all the time. Christian love is well informed. It comes from the heart that knows the love of God, but it is careful and cautious. I think Jesus provides the best example of discerning wise love. On the one hand, he could show incredible compassion and kindness to the vulnerable, to people who are neglected, who are treated unjustly or on the outside of privilege or are powerless. But also, he could be strong and courageous and speak truth to the hearts of the wicked and even expose what they're doing and speak against it. That's intelligent love. That's just not naive niceness. That's God-shaped love and loving. And that's the type of love we want to show and tell our children.